So you've decided you want to buy or sell a property using the installment sale process. So what is an installment sale? Well, it's a relatively simple mechanism for buying and selling property, where the buyer pays the seller the purchase price in monthly installments over an agreed period of time. What's more, the whole process is governed by the Alienation of Land Act, which makes it a safe alternative when executed by professionals like Propsolve. Here's how it works. We connect a buyer and seller through our online marketplace. We then conduct a financial assessment to ensure that the buyer can afford the monthly installments. Generally, our assessment is far more flexible than the bank's. Once the buyer and seller have agreed on price and terms, Propsolve specialist attorneys draw up an installment sale agreement. The buyer and seller sign the agreement. The buyer pays a deposit into the attorney's trust account. The attorneys lodge the actual contract at the deeds office, which is then recorded against the title deed of the property. This offers enormous protection to both parties. The seller, however, remains on the title deed of the property until it has been fully paid off by the buyer. The seller has to give occupation to the buyer on the agreed occupation date, at which point the buyer assumes all benefits and obligations of an owner of the property. After recordal, the deposit is released from the attorney's trust account and paid to the seller less any fees due. The buyer makes the monthly installment payments for the full length of the installment sale term, which can be any agreed period but is typically between 5 to 10 years. An installment sale is such an ideal sales mechanism as the buyer is really motivated to pay these monthly installments. They have put down a significant deposit that they do not want to put at risk. They also have the mindset of a property owner, and as buyers, they do not receive the protection afforded tenants in terms of the law in the unlikely event of a default by the buyer. While the seller is still responsible for any bond repayments, these are more than covered by the installments from the buyer. The buyer has to pay expenses such as rates, levies, insurance, maintenance, repairs, and all municipal services. Finally, if applicable, a balloon payment is made as the last installment. The balloon payment can be made either in cash or via a bond, which can be taken out at the end of the term. The buyer could even sell the property before the balloon is due, provided that all payments due to the seller can be fully settled from the proceeds. If a bond is the buyer's preferred method of settling the balloon, then getting a bond at the end of the term will be much easier because it is very likely that over the period, the property value would have increased. The buyer's income would have risen. The buyer would have paid down some of the capital. The buyer would have had the opportunity to make additional savings, and the buyer would have a proven track record of meeting their payment obligations. Payment of the last installment makes the property fully paid up, and the conveyancing attorneys can then transfer the property into the name of the buyer. And that's the whole process. Innovative, easy, and not daunting at all. Remember, Propsolve is there to guide you painlessly through each step of the process. We've done over 1,000 of these transactions, so there's no situation we have not come across and dealt with. Visit us now at propsolve.co.za to see how we can help you. Propsolve, the leader in installment sales.